And we are live. What's good, y'all? It's your man, DeSantis. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I really want to know podcast, man. Here we go, man. Couldn't let this one get by me, man. I had to say something. You know what I mean? It's my man, Patrick Bay David, Valuetainment. Y'all know I'm a huge fan, huge supporter. I rock with those people. But Patrick Bay David was able to get the interview he's been working hard to get with Governor Ron DeSantis. They had the interview a couple days ago, and bro, it was so soft. I mean, like Pat took it so easy on this guy, bro. Like it was maybe it was maybe they're friends in real life, and this was a past opportunity to help him out a little bit. But we got to talk about it. We got to break it down. It's gonna be at least two parts to this, y'all. It's only a 1 hour video, um, but it's gonna take a long time to get through, bro. Because man, Pat has always proven himself to be a tough interviewer and to get to the bottom of things and to, you know what I mean, to open your eyes to stuff both good and bad, but he didn't do that at all, in my opinion, uh, this time around. And I'm just wondering why, but we got to talk about it, y'all. So let's get into it. And we are live. What's good, y'all? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the I Really Want to Know podcast, y'all. And don't forget, Shushu will be here tomorrow, man. Shushu is the woman who made that intro and the outro, man. She's fire. Can't wait for her to come on the show tomorrow. We're gonna have some fun. We got some cool topics we're gonna hit up. It's always a good time when Shushu's in the house, man. So I hope you guys can make it tomorrow right here, same time, 6 o'clock Eastern. Well, you know what? It might be a little later. It might be a little later. I take that back. We probably start around 6:30 or 7 Eastern Standard Time. Look for the thumbnail. Because Shushu has a lot going on, so she needs that little extra time to get ready. Brother Smeebles is in the building, man. We got Australia up in this joint. Good day to you, bro. Glad you're here. Good to be here, man. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here, man. It's always a pleasure to see you. Brother Jack Black's in the building. What's good night? I see you, bro. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate it, man. And I appreciate everyone who comes through, man. I know a lot of folks out there are busy. This is like, rush hour, people trying to get home or whatever. They're transitioning, getting the kids, getting dinner ready, all that good stuff. But still come through and at least, drop a quick like, shoot a quick comment. I appreciate y'all, man. It's good. Yeah, man, I was talking to my dude, Jay Swans. He and I are always going on about stuff in the world and YouTube and all this other kind of stuff. And he was like laughing at me. He was like, yeah, I know that's your people, man. I bet you won't do a review on that. I bet you won't. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to, bro. Gonna have to break that down. Got to do a reaction, man. Sorry, got to. It is what it is. This is how you do it, bro. Brother Smith was like, yeah, it's 9 a.m. for me. Like, so I'm working. That's what's up, man. That's what's up, bro. Here it is, 6 p.m. for us over here on the east side of America, Eastern Standard Time. So, man, I'm glad to have you with me, bro. I'm definitely doing more, trying to transition into that self-improvement stuff, not necessarily transition, but I want to put more content out about that. Helping dudes out about with their style. We did a quick short today. We're talking about style. We're going to get into, how to approach people, how to have a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about colognes in the past, probably do another show on that. We're going to be talking about like accessories, timepieces, shoes, all that good kind of stuff, man. So we're going to get into that because there's a lot of guys hitting me up, asking me these questions, bro. Like, hey, I'm in the friend zone and how do I get out? Or, hey, I had a girlfriend and it didn't work out, but I want her back. I want to get her back. And these sorts of questions. And like, bro, all right, we can talk about it. I don't know why you break up with somebody. You broke up for a reason. I don't know why you would want to take her back, especially if you've leveled up. I know why she would want you back, but I don't know why you would take her back. But hey, man, we're going to get into stuff like that and start. And there are people out there who tell you how to get them back. Dudes out there like, yeah, man, I'm in love with a stripper. You know what I mean? And she's a good girl and she really doesn't want to be a stripper. And, how do I get her to stop? It's like, bro, you need to stop. Like, what you doing, man? It's just certain things you don't want to rock with. But hey, there's all sorts of questions that come my way. So I'm gonna start doing quick videos about it. See if I can help out. Right. It's I get it. It's tough out here, man. These streets are cold and they getting colder. So and the game is what it is. So, a lot of you brothers need to really wise up to the game, man, and kind of get out there and really discover your value and understand what's going on with female nature. And same thing for you ladies. Y'all need to wise up to the game, right? And understand what you're dealing with. Women tend to want the same type of dude. And let's be realistic. If you want to get that guy, there's a way to do it. But just being pretty and having a big butt ain't enough. You know what I mean? It ain't enough. So we're going to be talking about that. You're going to see more content like that in the future. We're definitely going to be talking more about finance, especially with real estate, what's going on here with Wall Street, crypto. And then we have Downrange podcast for all the political stuff, man. We did a live today. I was reacting to a video I saw on Night Talks. And it was about what's going on with Israel and Palestine, or Hamas, the war in the Middle East. So I was kind of talking about that. So you guys want to see that sort of stuff, that's over on Downrange Podcast. We're going to, talk everything politics. There's a lot to talk about on the political side, y'all, the political side. And then, of course, we got what's going on with Donald Trump latest. His kids are all being called in to testify in this New York thing, which is a civil case. And, yeah, Trump is not happy with what's going on with that, man. That's a crazy story. So we'll, definitely do an update on the Trump situation in all four cases. You got New York, you got Jersey. You got New York and Georgia. Those are 2 state cases. And then you have DC and Miami, which are the 2 federal cases. So we'll definitely keep y'all up to date on what's going on with that, man. It's craziness over there. But we're here to talk about Patrick Bet-David interview with Governor Ron DeSantis. In studio down there at Valuetainment in Fort Lauderdale, man. It was fire. You know what I mean? Shout out to him for even getting the interview. I got to give it to him. But, man, it was a love fest jumping off there, bro. It wasn't very hard hitting. It was very, very friendly interview for Ron DeSantis. And I'm wondering why Pat didn't probe or go a little bit deeper, like below the surface. Maybe this was by design. Maybe this was a way to help Ron DeSantis get some much needed confidence moving forward, because he's getting wrecked. Like this is a pretty bad campaign he's running. You can absolutely tell that Ron DeSantis is in a bubble all by himself. He's walking around butt naked. His people won't say nothing. It's like, yo, the emperor has no clothes, but no one wants to tell him. So Pat was there, and Pat talked about a couple things, but he really didn't go deep at all. This was definitely a softball. It's like he's helping out DeSantis, full disclosure, Patrick Bet-David has always said he's a big DeSantis fan. He loves Florida. He loves the way DeSantis handled the state during the whole pandemic, which is spot on. And I said this from the very beginning. Ron DeSantis had no business getting into this race for president of the United States. He should have just focused on his state. It's enough going on down here. And he could have focused on 2028, but he didn't. It is what it is. So let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. We have the video right here all loaded up, and this is Patrick Bet-David again. Shout out to him. Shout out to Valuetainment and all the everybody in the Valuetainment family. Man, let's get into this, man. So we're just gonna start the video right. Start it off, and of course I'll be stopping quite a bit to give my 2 cents on what's going on and what's being said. All right. So let's go. They always start off with no music, no nothing until the intro plays. So did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could taste sweet victory. That was Patrick firing a cannon. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet-David? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the flamethrower. Like Patrick Bet-David has talked to everyone, bro. Like everyone. He knows how to interview. He knows what he's doing. He's a self-made man. he's created so many, he's created some profitable businesses, Valuetainment being the one of the latest ventures. So he is no stranger to the interview world. So let's get into it.
Okay, so podcast episode number 321. Many of you have been waiting for this. This is a special one. I was with the governor yesterday. He came and spent a few minutes with the family, the kids. My son was like, I met the governor. It was great. We were at the Miami Dolphins game. They even won. But I hear this is your first live podcast for an hour that you're going to. So it's an honor to have you here. We're truly honored by this.
And I appreciate your setting up shop in Florida and doing all you're doing down here.
Yes, I told you earlier, we're going to make Fort Lauderdale the Hollywood of the Burbank of East Coast, but it's going to take us a minute. Anyways, let's get right into it. We got only 1 hour together. So first things first, for me, when I watch you very closely, I told you this yesterday, and I'm going to say it on camera as well, so it's very aligned with exactly the message I give to my son. When Dylan came in, he shook hands with you. I said, Dylan, do you know who this man is? I said, this man is the governor. He's the reason why we moved to the great state of Florida. So you're the reason why we came here. And when we were in Texas, we had our insurance company. We built it. We moved it from L.A. To Addison, Texas. We had it there. We grew it to 45, 50,000 agents. We sold it a year and a half ago. 2.5 years ago, I said, babe, we got to move to a state. We're looking at everywhere here. We're looking at Greenwich. We're looking at New York. We're looking at Newport Beach. We're looking at staying in Dallas. We're looking at Nashville. We're looking at Tampa. And then finally, we made a decision to come out here for a couple different reasons. So, I think sometimes if we go back 3 years ago, you got a lot of hate. People were criticizing you left and right. And I want to first start off by listing all your victories, what you've done. I think the world needs to know this. And I think this needs to be on a greatest hits constantly over and over again for people to know what you did and how.
So right off the rip, you see that Pat's doing the majority of the talking. There's no questions going. He's thanking him for coming through. He's talking about his son and his family. He's given a brief summary of how he and his business ended up in Florida. And it is what it is. I don't think I've ever seen a Bet David interview begin this way. But hey, he's talking to the governor, the current governor of Florida. And the number 2, if I'm not mistaken, on the Republican side in the race for the White House. I haven't checked the polls. I meant to do that before we got started, but I haven't checked the polls. But no one's even close to Trump. No one on the Republican side. No one. They're all definitely fighting for number 2. And Trump came out early on against DeSantis doing, what Trump does. Last good man in Jersey's in the building. What's good, fam? How you feeling, bro? Appreciate you dropping by, dropping a like, man. I appreciate it, man. We just over here talking, just talking that talk, checking out my people over here, Patrick Bet David Valuetainment in this interview. It's one of the things too that I was going to send a tweet to Patrick Bet David. I never got around to it. Maybe I will do it. I was going to blame Patrick Bet David for the failed campaign of Ron DeSantis. And I was going to say, Pat, it's your fault because you took too long writing that book that's right there over his left shoulder. Choose your enemies wisely. Like, you should have finished that book sooner and got it to Ron DeSantis. I've never been a fan of Ron DeSantis, but I will say this. It was brave for him to do what he did during the pandemic. And he kept the state open, and history is going to remember him fondly because it turns out that he was correct. Politically, there's a whole bunch of other things going on with DeSantis, but as far as keeping the state open, doing what he did, during the pandemic, you can't knock it, bro. You cannot knock it. I was in California during the pandemic, bro. That was not it. What they were doing in California and the rest of the country was not it. Then coming here to Florida and seeing how, everything is open. This is how it's supposed to be. Yeah, I got to give him credit for that. So shout out to Ron DeSantis for doing that. He's done a couple other things I agree with, but he's done a bunch of things that I don't agree with. So let's get back to the video.
How hard it was for you to do what you did. So one, I'm a guy that lived in California. I saw what Disneyland against Disney World, when everybody's like, well, let's see what's going to happen. This is the best case study of California against Florida. And then one day, Bob Iger comes on and says, I'm out. October of 2020, he left the Newsom camp. And the next day, they announced they're letting go of 28,000 employees, but you kept it open. So Disney World excels. The small businesses around are doing good, but California is getting destroyed, okay? Everybody would say, you shut down Florida, you shut down Florida. April 1st, you announced it 2020. It was like 3 or 4 weeks. We were here, and then free. It was a decision that a lot of people made.
And during that month, we had people flocking to Florida even then.
We were one of them.
We had golf courses going. We had recreation protected churches, all those things. So, we basically did a loose of the federal guidelines. But I was being criticized from the other side saying that this was that I wasn't doing enough on that regard. And then obviously we reversed course very quickly and then led the country for the next few years.
And by the way, too.
I'm here to tell you, man, it's hard to do that. When going against the federal government, going against, the powers to be, even in your own party, that takes a lot of courage, bro. I mean, that's just something. And then reversing course, like, all right, we started doing this, but you continue to look at the information, you continue to look at what's being provided. Plus, you're a governor, so you're going to have access to information that the average person wouldn't have access to. You get to talk to business leaders, you get to talk to scientists, you get to talk to whoever you need to speak people within the government who aren't necessarily elected officials, but people who know what's going on. You're going to have a direct line with the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. And it takes a lot to do all that. That's true leadership. That is true leadership. Like, all right, this is what's going on. We're not buying what's being sold by the feds or whatever. This is our state. We're gonna take a different tack. We're gonna try this, and we're gonna see what's going on. I can appreciate that. I can absolutely appreciate that. It just takes, that's not something you take lightly. You feel me? So, you gotta get credit where credit is due. DeSantis and his people, I think they made the right call on that.
To some of the Republicans that criticized you to say he shut it down, that wasn't a shutdown. That was a test to see how things were reacting, to see what it was going to be like. And then you went back to business as usual based on what you saw. UFC 261, first full capacity event that took place April 24, 2021 in Jacksonville. Then you have LeBron. I don't know if he's ever seen.
That we actually did the first live sporting event. COVID came, everyone freaked out, all the sports leagues shut down.
Right.
Dana White was trying to find a deserted island. So I called him. I said, Dana, just do it in Florida. And he's like, all right. He's like, where can I do it? I was like, wherever you want. And he wanted to make sure that the local mayor would also be supportive, because he's like, I know. I was like, look, I'll overrule him. He's like, no, I want to make sure everyone wants us there. So the Jacksonville mayor was a Republican, wanted him to do so. I think it was the first week of May 2020 when people, Governor of California is saying, don't even leave your house. We did a UFC. Now, we didn't have the stadium filled, but to do that was important because people were acting like we couldn't live life. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
So that part right there, he's talking to Dana White. He wants to bring UFC in during the pandemic into Florida. He's like, hey, man, you can do it anywhere in Florida. Dana White, being a businessman and he understands politics. He's like, no, I want to make sure that I pick a city that's on board with this. And DeSantis said right there, well, I'll overrule him. I think that was a missed opportunity for Pat to say, what do you mean by that? I'll overrule him. Like that's a question that I would have asked. I mean, hold on. What do you mean you would have overruled? So if he wanted to go to a city and the mayor and the people of that city didn't want to have this event in their town for whatever reason, you're saying you're going to force them to do that? How? What's the legal grounds for doing such? What method or what vessel would you use to force people in your state to do something they don't want to do? It's their town, right? It's their town. It's their county. What do you mean, Mr. Governor? That's the first one. I would have asked that question, like, what do you mean? I just would have overruled them. How does that work? You feel me? And this is, I think that was a missed opportunity. And I'm keeping track. Let's continue.
Desperately.
And so you had that, and so because we stood up for that, Dana's like, I'm always going to come back to Jacksonville. Yep. So he's come back to Jacksonville every year now.
And by the way, not only that, the UFC that they did in Miami was a record breaking at the gate, even bigger than New York. Dana said in an interview, the post fight, he said this was felt like what LA was 10 years ago, even more than that. LeBron James won a championship because of you. These guys were the BLM guys, but they ran the playoffs here,
right.
which was full of controversy and contradictions.
The
there.
NBA bubble, that's right.
But I can go on and on and on and talk about how parents feel comfortable here. You know, what you've done with limiting the gender affirming care, the E-Verify, veto and wasteful spending. I know the insurance crisis. I made a video about it today, how they're trying to kind of give you a hard time because you stand up to BlackRock and ESG. And then CBDC, which was one of the biggest ones that you guys rarely talk about. I'd love for you to talk more about that. Crypto communities now become crypto capital in the world is Miami. It's here. It's what you guys have done. And then I talked about that before. But I want to get into an issue right now that we're
all really good points. The crypto stuff, excellent point. DeSantis never talked about it. He talked about the gender affirming thing. Okay, DeSantis never talked about it. The real big one is the insurance crisis going on here in Florida, right? The government of Florida has been very pro-business on this, and it's definitely a crisis, and it's to the point where it's forcing some people to leave the state because they can't afford to insure their homes. And Pat mentioned that. The governor never spoke on it. Right? So that's another one. Right? So when you have the central bank digital currency, I would have loved to hear the governor talk more about that. I'm sure the crypto people would have loved it too. The gender thing, with kids, I know that's a real big thing out in California or wherever, not so big here. And I'm pretty sure, again, I would like to hear, we know some of the stuff that the governor has done, and it's definitely affected schools. It's affected teachers. There's been a lot of teachers who've walked away from the business because of some of the initiative and some of the laws or whatever that this particular governor has created. I would love to hear him speak on that. The insurance crisis. I'm just writing this stuff down. So, we're going to watch this video. We're going to watch this interview, but they never circle back to that stuff, which I would have loved to hear, but they never circle back to it.
Dealing with. I lived in Iran 10 years. Okay. And whatever we turn on right now, we're seeing Israel, Palestine. A couple months ago was Ukraine, Russia. Now it's Israel, Palestine. Everyone's talking about it. It's a issue that's very disturbing. When we saw the video of people coming down and then what they did at that rave, the party, and then you're seeing the videos, the kidnapping, all that stuff taking place. And then the numbers came out today, 8,500 on the Palestinian side, on what Israel has done. You got 1,500 on the Israeli side. It's a very complicated situation here because on one end, you're seeing how many billionaires are pulling money out of giving money to Harvard. I mean, that's where you went to, Yale. That's also where you went into, and Penn and all these different universities. What are you guys doing? How come you're not supporting this? You're supporting Palestine. You're quiet about it. And then on one end, I'm sitting there asking a question saying, how did Netanyahu not know? If you got the best secret intelligence in the world, Mossad, how did you not know this was going to take place? And the other question becomes, how Egypt, why are you not taking, refugees to come to your country? What do you know about your neighbor that the rest of us don't know? These are two questions that we can both entertain. But this for you. I feel the Democrats have owned the black vote for decades, that they feel like no matter what they do, they are always going to get the black vote. That's kind of how they treat them. So a lot of blacks are not happy about it. But guess what? Every year, 84 to 88% vote Democrat. I get a feeling that Netanyahu or Israel, this is a question a lot of people are thinking about, including myself, sees the Americans as the same way. America's got our back. We can do whatever we want to do, and they're going to always have our back. Matter of fact, even in a private conversation that he was having in 2001, I want to play this clip. He's having a conversation with a couple people. This has been reported on by WAPO in 2010. Al Jazeera, I want to say in 2001, and all over the place. If you don't mind paying attention to this video, and then I'll ask the question. Here's Netanyahu privately having a conversation in 01. Go ahead, Rob, and play it.
שהמחיר יקבל ניצחון, כרגע המחיר לא קבל ניצחון, על התקפה רבת היקף על הרשות הפלסטינית. מדברת על פחד שהכל מתמוטט. לא פוחדים, משחקים להם ירו לנו את הישר וצחוק ופשוט הם לא פוחדים לצחוק. זה מה שמביא אותם
ואז רגע, אבל אז השוק מהעולם יגיד מה אתם פוגשים. אתה לא מפחד מהעולם, ביבי.
במיוחד היום עם אמריקה, אני יודע מה זה אמריקה. זה לא להזיז אותו בכלל. יש עליו נניח שמומחים משהו, אז אמרו, אני לא כל פוליטיקאים תומכים לנו. זה אבסורד.
80% Americans support us. It's absurd. We can kind of get what we want out of them. So this is my concern. I'm American.
And before Pat gets to this point, I want to just insert a quick point. It's easy for the whole world to get over on America, right? Because Americans lack the ability of critical thought, man. Well, we talk about that over here all the time, man. Like I use a sound bite, right? I use this sound bite all the time.
Think tank, Arch, nothing gets past the old think tank. Nothing.
The think tank, and that's a sound bite from one of my favorite movies, Rock and Roller, Guy Ritchie movie. Shout out to Guy Ritchie. Y'all see Snatch over my shoulder here. I'm a big fan of Guy Ritchie movies and the dialogue and the stuff they put together. But the think tank, Americans don't have the ability to put it through the think tank. Americans pretty much do what they're told to do, and I think that's what Yahoo was pointing out. And there's other leaders all over the world that they know the same thing. So education is key. When you finish your schooling in America, like when you go through K through 12, before university, you should have the ability to critically think. You should know where the hot spots are in the world. You should know how many people want to hurt America and how many people love America. Like I'm talking about these different countries and these different ideologies. You should know this stuff. Americans don't. The average American cannot find Israel or Gaza on the map. They don't know who Hamas is. They have no idea who Hezbollah is. You talk about the PLO, they don't know what you're talking about. And that was, the Palestinian Liberation Army that was defeated by Hamas. Right? So it is what it is, man. Hell, most Americans can't find America on the map. That's how bad our education system has gotten. So let's hear what Pat has to say.
America first. I live here. My kids live here. My kids are in Florida because I feel the safest here. I don't mind my allies having good relationships with me. I'm okay with my allies. I have a problem with my allies using me as a card to abuse that get out of jail card. And then eventually this thing can turn around and lead into World War III, because World War I, 90 million people died. 60 million people died. If the third one happens at that trajectory, it's 200 million people. Do you think Netanyahu is kind of using a get out of jail card to do what he wants to do and what he's been wanting to do with Palestine all these years?
No, look, I don't think, I think you pointed out, how does, they have the best security in the world, and yet this is a massive attack on their civilian population. So my sense is in Israel is that the public is very disenchanted with the government. I think they view it as having been a big problem that this happened. And so I think they're now in a situation where they have to say, okay, you have this group in the Gaza Strip, which, by the way, is not occupied territory. Israel pulled out in 2006. They elected Hamas, and I think that's been a big mistake because most of the capital goes into the terrorist infrastructure. But I think they're in a situation where you can't live with that type of a threat right on your border, and so they have to deal with it. I don't think it's a question of America get out of jail free. I think honestly they're going to do what they're going to do. We've been a strong ally of theirs and vice versa over the years, but we've deployed troops all over the world. We've never deployed troops there. They've always fought with their own army. So I think I don't think it's a question of manipulating America. I think it's, you have the American people by and large have affinity for Israel, largely, I think, more from in our Christian community than anything, just based on the history of the Judeo-Christian tradition and how it's informed this country. So I think it is unique in terms of the affinity that our country has for Israel because of the biblical history and people's adherence to the Judeo-Christian tradition.
Yeah, earlier today
he did a lot of talking there. He didn't say shit. You know what I mean? Like, and it's one of those things like, bro, you're running for president of the United States of America and you're afraid to say what your stance will be on this. This is your opportunity. And Pat, that's my guy, but Pat did not press him. Right? Now, they were talking about the black vote before they got into this and all that. Again, he's not going to talk about the black vote. In Republicans, every 4 years we talk about this. Why can't the Republican Party get the black vote? Because you got people like DeSantis saying things like slaves benefited from slavery. That's why. In a nutshell, like you got that. Like you got that. And then you have him like, you know, he was talking about critical race theory, and I'm not going to write that down because that'll be one of our points later on in this breakdown. If not this episode, the next. When he brought it up, the Governor DeSantis brought that up and was standing on like, yeah, we did away with critical race theory. This is a man who went to law school. The only place you find critical race theory is in your 3rd year of law school. There's no critical race curriculum anywhere from K through 12, anywhere. It doesn't exist. So again, that's one of those talking points that he got away with. I definitely would have dug in on that, but you know, we'll cover that more deeply a little bit later in the breakdown.
He said, you know, this whole thing about ceasefire, I don't know if you saw that or not, where he's like, look, we're not going to ceasefire. Did America ceasefire with Pearl Harbor? Did America ceasefire with 9/11? Did America ceasefire? We're not going to either, right? Which, by the way, I understand his position. My concern isn't his position. My concern is this going so extreme where it backfires. You're seeing what happened at airports yesterday in Russia. I'm sure you saw that clip. It's all over the place. What do we do to prevent this from coming back in our soil? I'm a product of Iran. I lived in Iran 10 years, and I remember when Jimmy Carter's like, well, you know, human rights, you know, the Shah's got to get rid of these 3,000 political prisoners. He did. And then Al-Qaeda and, you know, Osama bin Laden, all this thing came out of it. 10, 20, 30 years later, we got a 9/11 here. So are you worried the position he's taking could have some residual effects that come to America?
I don't think it's because of that. I am worried about terrorism in America largely because of what our own government has done to let people in illegally from all around the world. You've had people, almost 8 million have come in. We know people have come in from China, Russia, Middle East, all these places, 140 people on the terror watch list that our own government acknowledges.
Yep.
I mean, so you figure there's a lot more than that. And if you look at 9/11, part of the reason that happened was a failure of the immigration system too. I mean, those people they weren't here on valid visas, or they had their visas expired, the hijackers. So my fear is just you have so many people that have flooded in. Some of them are part of the drug cartel. Some of them just want to work. Some of them are criminal aliens. And then some of them, I think, would be potential terrorists. And I think there's going to be a terrorist attack in this country that we're going to be able to trace back to the border. And so I look at it and say, okay, you got to protect your own people first and foremost. Territorial integrity of your country must be enforced. You can't just let the inmates run the asylum. And I think what we're seeing in some of these places in Europe, in some of these areas, is they had immigration policies that were bringing people in that didn't want to assimilate. You know, my view is like nobody has a right to come to America, of course, illegally, but even legally, it's a privilege to be able to do that. The two things that has to be is you got to believe in this country's ideals, and you got to want to assimilate. I don't think it's.
I got to pause you, Mary. In order to come to America, you got to believe in the country's ideal, and you have to assimilate. Assimilate to who? America's always been a melting pot. And again, this is something that I know Pat was sitting there listening to him like, bro, you just left yourself wide open here. Assimilate to who? We're going to make a restriction, you know what I mean, for those who want to come into this country that doesn't what? That doesn't believe in your God? That doesn't believe in your moral system, that doesn't believe in what? I want people to come in here and understand the law, understand right from wrong. And I don't care who you pray to, right? I don't care what you do outside of that, right? You understand the Constitution. You understand what America was founded on. What he's talking about right now, nah. Like, nah. You got to explain that, Bubba. What are you talking about? Assimilate to what? Because this dude right here, he's an elitist, right? The average American doesn't go to Harvard and Yale. This dude right here is an elitist. Like, if you what is are you supposed to assimilate to his way of life, or what you tell them to assimilate to, or to my way of life? Because I'm here to tell you, life in the hood is way different than life, you know what I'm saying, in those bubbles on the other side of the tracks. So what are we talking about here? And then like with 9/11, like the 9/11 guys, all those dudes involved in 9/11, they all entered the country legally. Yeah, they overstayed visas, but they entered legally. They didn't scamper across the border. And everyone's looking at the Canadian, the southern border. Everyone's looking at Mexico. The Canadian border is wide open. If I want to get something in America, I'm bringing it down from the north. And everyone knows that, even Border Patrol. And they've been screaming for decades, we need more support up here in the north. We need more boots on the ground in the north. We need more devices. We need more infrastructure so we can defend this border in the north. People been talking about that since right after 9/11. So you see what I'm saying? It's just, you got him right here. Let's talk about this. Let's figure it out. You want to be president of the United States of America. What's your plan to deal with this situation in the Middle East? Yes, this has us on the verge of a third world war. Absolutely. Turkey has made it clear that if something pops off, they are on the side of Iran. Turkey. Like I said, we got 2 carrier strike groups over there in the Mediterranean right now. It's a tremendous amount of firepower. The 101st Airborne Division just happens to be in Jordan on training anyway. He just happened to be there. 82nd Airborne Division, 18th Airborne Corps could be anywhere in the world in less than 18 hours. Right? How much does DeSantis truly understand? You know what I mean? And Pat, I mean, if Iran gets involved, Turkey gets involved, America's already involved. You got Lebanon and you know, Hezbollah involved. Gaza's already involved. Egypt doesn't want anything to do with it. You got Jordan don't want anything to do with it. You know what I mean? Syria doesn't want anything to do with this. But if they have to, if it goes down and people are forced to pick sides, they're gonna, you know what side they're gonna pick. Bro, we're right there. We're right there. What is his plan? What would he do? The next president surely has to deal with this. I'm not saying that Joe Biden is the answer. I'm not saying that, guys. But you want to be president of the United States, and all you giving us is word salad? Like you're on a, you know, this is not a hostile environment. Let's hear what you got to say, man. Let's hear your real plan. I don't think he has one.
It's helpful to bring in massive numbers of people that are going to try to bring foreign cultures in. And that's, I think, what's happened. There's no-go zones in France and in Britain and some of these places. That's not a recipe for success. So I think Europe's going to have a very difficult time with these tensions bubbling up. I think we have the ability to still be smart about what we're doing here in the United States and avoid some of what they've walked themselves into.
I just hope and pray that this thing doesn't get ugly. I know you got 3 kids. I got 4. We you know, when you think from your kid's perspective, it's a little bit concerning when you're seeing this is not calming down. It's getting worse. And it's like at a bar. It's like, what'd you say? What'd you say? And everybody's like, did you see what he said? And it's just getting more and more and more heated. And we got to kind of figure out a way to bring it down. So Republican Party, let's transition.
And Pat is absolutely right about that. It's going there, y'all. It's going there. And if it gets there, they're going to have to institute the draft, because this ain't going to be just some quickie. You feel me? This is going to be a committed conflict. You know, 2, maybe 4 years. Brother Tez is in the building. What's good, fam? I see you. We're over here breaking down the Patrick Bet-David interview with Governor Ron DeSantis. And again, you know, full disclosure, I am a huge fan of Patrick Bet-David. I am a huge fan of Valuetainment. I'm trying to figure out a way to get in and work with him. Like you said, he wants to turn Fort Lauderdale into Burbank. And what he means by that, in Hollywood, Burbank is where most of the studios are. Like, I mean, you got some in West Hollywood, you got some in Century City, Culver City, but Burbank is like where, you know, Fox is and all this other kind of stuff, man. It's huge. And he's trying to do that. And I believe him. I absolutely believe him. But so yeah, I'm like, man, but this is somewhere, you know, we might not necessarily see eye to eye. And what I mean by that is you have the governor of the state of Florida, the number 2, right, on the Republican side, running for president. I think he's still number 2, but he's losing support. He's losing money. Why not ask him the questions that we, you know, let him expand on some of the stuff he's saying? It's just been softball after softball after softball, but let's continue.
To the next topic. There's a bit of a civil war going on at the Republican Party. There's 3, I think, factions right now in the Republican Party. One is the anti-establishment faction. Okay, you can put the Matt Gaetz of the world and some of those guys in there, and the MAGA crowd and Trump and those guys in there. You can put the establishment crowd in there. Some of the guys that are the establishment guys that do well. Some would call you anti-establishment at times. Some would call you establishment. You're like a hybrid. And then the third could be the Liz Cheney, the Lincoln Project, the old Lincoln Project, which they had some momentum. They don't have the legs they do today, but there's a little bit of the rhino community. For yourself, when you see this, Speaker of the House, McCarthy, Mike Johnson, stuff that we've not seen before, right? You see this division taking place. Do you see yourself as a unifier, or do you see yourself as a revolutionary?
Well, I think in some ways we're both. I mean, we would come to Washington and upend the order of way that they've done business, and I don't think we've had a president do that since Ronald Reagan when he came in 1980. I think that we need somebody that can come in across the board on all these issues: the bureaucracy, the border, the economy, and do this, implement these changes, and do it for an 8-year period. I think that that's very important. But I also am somebody who, in my reelection as Florida governor, I got 97% of registered Republicans. That was a record. I mean, normally if you get 90%, that's considered very, very good. We've got 97%.
You destroyed it. It wasn't even close.
Well, but the thing is we were able to bring people together
Right.
because we had a strong vision and we were delivering results for people. So I think what they're missing in Washington is so much of what the party's doing is theater. You have guys out there that are putting on a show, and that's on all sides. I mean, ultimately these Lincoln Project people, it's all about clicks for them and money and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that ultimately is not what you're judged on in terms of being a leader. You're judged on, are you actually producing results? Are you moving the electorate in a way that is going to be better? In Florida, we produce results, but we also move the electorate. We took an electorate that was down the middle, 50-50, and we turned it into a 60-40 victory. Now we're considered a strong red state. That was not the case. In fact, you go back before I got elected governor, people were saying this was going to go blue. That's what people thought. They thought. And
he has a point. Like Florida was kind of purple back then. And guess what? It may turn purple again now. His stance on deletion rights for women, what he did, those bills that he signed into law, right? That bill in particular, that alienated a lot of women, a lot of Republican women. His stance on immigration, what he was doing as, basically forcing all, a large segment of, undocumented people out of state. I mean, it is what it is. I ain't mad at him, but that's going to cause some problems, right? Some real problems. That's going to mess up the control you might have with that Cuban vote, right? When you look at the Latino vote, because it's just a lot of Latino families got broken up over this stuff and had to make tough decisions. Right, the stuff he was doing with education, and again, that thing about slavery helping the black folks. So if you got conservative blacks who are like, man, I don't know about this guy. So through his policies, he's putting the state at risk from going red to purple. And he's saying like we brought people together. No, he didn't. The Democrats gave up on this state. They didn't really try to beat him. They sent a former Republican down here to fight him, to run against him. And they didn't send a whole lot of money either. It wasn't, the Democrats did what the Republicans are doing now in this upcoming election. They're pulling their money back and they're just kind of conceding the race. You know what I mean? Now that might change because of what's going on in the Middle East, but everything he's saying, he's rolling out all of his talking points unchallenged. He said he would go to DC and his people would up in the order of Washington. That's just another way of saying drain the swamp. I mean, they're not even creative. Okay, how would you do it? Trump couldn't do it. W couldn't do it. H.W. Bush couldn't do it. So how are you going to drain the swamp? What plan do you have? You see what I'm saying? He hasn't been pressed. Brother Griot's in the building. What's good, fam? Good to see you. Thanks for coming through. What plan do you have? You just talking loud, saying nothing. That's what I hear in my, the Ghetto Boys have a song. It's called Talking Loud, Saying Nothing. And that's the hook. Talking loud, saying nothing. And that's all I'm hearing. Dude talking loud, but he ain't saying nothing. Like, how you going to do all these things? Good thing he's sitting on the panel with his man. He's sitting up there with PBD.
And in fact, during COVID, you heard a lot of that because they're like, oh my gosh, Governor DeSantis has schools open. He's got all this stuff open. It's so unpopular, all this stuff. He's not going to be able to win re-election. There, people were saying that, and they were acting like this was an opportunity for Democrats. Turned out it was the opposite. So I think what you need to you need to unify the Republicans, and you need to win enough independents. If you can't do that, you're just not going to win. And I'm the only one that really has a track record of doing that in Florida. We want independent voters by 18 percentage points. I mean, that's really what you need. But we didn't do it by contorting ourselves or trying to put our finger in the wind. We did what we believed. We told people the truth. We delivered results, and we were able to track people. There are people out there, they don't need to agree with you on everything. But if they see that you're telling them the truth, they know you'll fight more when the chips are down, they will support you. So we've got to do more of that, I think, as the Republicans. But look, I was conservative against the Republican establishment before Donald Trump ever ran, and I'm the same. A lot of those people in D.C., they don't want me to be the candidate. They opposed me. Everything we did in Florida, they've opposed. They opposed us having the state open. They opposed us having schools open. They opposed us fighting the vax mandates and stopping those. They opposed us beating Disney in the parents' rights fight. They've opposed us on getting critical race theory out of our schools. They opposed us on banning sanctuary cities. They opposed me when we sent illegal aliens to Martha's Vineyard. So that cabal of Republicans is basically a surrender caucus. They don't actually ever win victories. They're totally fine being the junior partners to the Democrats in the entrenched DC ruling class. That is totally unacceptable. And I fought those guys the whole time. I'm really the only guy that has just beat the left on issue after issue. I mean, we've beat them across the board. We've thoroughly pushed them out of taking over institutions. I mean, for example, higher education. I now have tenured professors in Florida every 5 years. They have to undergo review. They can be let go. I put 7 conservatives on the trustee board at New College. They fired the president. They got rid of DEI. And now they have a classical liberal arts college like Hillsdale College, and they're bringing in new professors. They're cycling out some of the old professors. The media will say, oh, there's a brain drain leaving New College and this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. If a professor of intersectional Marxism is leaving Florida, that is not a negative
We're
for
okay with
Florida.
that.
So again, he realized in this point in the interview he wasn't going to get challenged on anything. So he brings up this education thing, right? Don't take it from me. When you get a chance, just pull up the rankings and see where Florida rates in education, just in America. We already know where America rates in education with the rest of the developed world. But look where Florida is. I'm going to give you a hint. Start looking towards the bottom. This stuff he talked about, like just then he threw it before he starts talking about education and all this stuff that he's talking about. He mentioned sending migrants to Martha's Vineyard. He didn't send any migrants from Florida to Martha's Vineyard. Everyone understands that. And here's the thing, that's still being investigated by the feds. Pat let that go. That's definitely something I would have talked about. Right? They allegedly sent an airplane funded by Florida, money that Florida received from the feds for the pandemic relief. They took money from that fund, chartered a jet or a couple jets, flew that jet out to Texas, loaded up some people who were migrants seeking asylum and had some sort of status in America. So the government had already worked with these people. They didn't go on the Mexican side of the border. They got them once they crossed the border over here, flew them through Florida to Martha's Vineyard. I can't believe he even brought that up. I wouldn't have said a word. He just said that he did that. I wouldn't have said a word because that might be illegal. They're looking at it. That case ain't gone nowhere. The feds are looking at that. I would not have said a word about that. Again, at this point, he realized he's not going to get pressed on anything. So the migrant flight thing, you know what I mean? That's huge. That's huge. And then he just starts going on and on about education. Yeah, tenure, having to, have to renew your tenure every 5 years, have to go to a board or something like that. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. You shouldn't have lifetime tenure. I mean, that just, how do you combat that? You feel me? But, and it's not to say that DeSantis has and his administration hadn't done any good things in Florida. They've done some great things. But Pat is just giving him a pass on all this stuff, bro. Just giving him a pass. Wonderful 34's in the building. What's good, fam? Good to see you. That migrant flight thing, bro. If I'm on DeSantis's team, I'm like, bro, why did you bring that up? Stay away from that. I'm gonna mute my mic for a second, guys. I gotta tell my daughter to do something. I'm back just that fast. So I'd have stayed away from that migrant flight. And again, Pat's not pushing back on anything. Let's continue.
It's a good thing. What we've done in K-12 schools to protect parents' rights. And I think if you look at the larger reason why the country's in decline, I think a big part of it is the left. Anytime there's any vacuum, they get in. So they're in education, bureaucracy, now corporate America with things like ESG and the whole DI agenda. So they corrupt these institutions, and then that ends up being weaponized against regular Americans. And so in Florida, we beat them on the institutional level. And no other Republican can say that they've done that, because I understand that you can win a superficial policy fight, and you need to win those in the legislature or whatnot. But if the left controls every institution in our society, then ultimately it's a losing proposition. So Florida, I think the reason we're the free state of Florida, yes, no income tax, yes, COVID freedom, all that important, but we beat the left on the institutional level.
Listen,
And like that last bit he said about K through 12 teachers and all that kind of stuff, man. I live in one of the best school districts in the state. Like the area we're in, they have great schools. That's the reason we moved here. The elementary, middle school, and high school levels, they can't keep teachers. Teachers have been leaving in droves in the 2 years that I've been here. It's to the point now where it's crisis mode at the school that my daughter currently attends. They're trying to figure it out. They can't keep teachers. They can't keep administrators. And this is a direct result of some of the policies coming out of the DeSantis administration. Again, nothing that I would really want to stand on. Now, this would have been an opportunity for the governor to defend this. And everywhere else he goes, he has to defend it. This is why he gets crushed when he's in a not so friendly environment. He can't defend this stuff. He just can't, especially when he's faced with the data. Like, bro, Florida's failing in a lot of these categories on a lot of levels. And a lot of this has to do with your policies. And you want to be president? The same thing would happen with Newsom, with Gavin Newsom. If Gavin Newsom is sent somewhere, you ain't asking him the hard questions, you're going to be mad. California is a mess. Right? It is an absolute mess. And Gavin Newsom knows that it's him and his administration is behind most of it. But Gavin Newsom is a professional politician. He's been around the block. He's polished, right? And he will win a popularity contest. He'll destroy someone like a DeSantis, right? Even though his state is way worse than what's going on out here in Florida. But the guy's just more polished. I'm not a fan of Gavin Newsom at all. I was in California. I saw how bad it was. But let that guy sit down and start talking to you, and you'll be like, oh my goodness, he'll shoot that game, bro. He will shoot that game, and you'll be like, well, at least he knows what he's talking about. Let's continue.
One of the things that was most impressive with you is your dogfight. You fought. It wasn't like you backed down. You're not afraid. You got brass. You're willing to get up there and throw, with anybody. And that's actually very attractive, because we need that in America today, especially as a parent, people that want to create jobs, that want low regulation. You want that. But I want to go back to the question about unifying and revolutionary. So is the goal more for the party to win, policies to win, or for your personal ambitions of you being a president? Which one's more important?
The results, 100%.
Okay.
I'm a vessel for those results. You're judged by the results you do. It's not about holding the position. It's about what you do to make the country better and to make the people freer.
Fair enough. I want to play this clip for you. Then I got a question for you. This is a campaign video that most people haven't seen. This is from 5 years ago. Not this one. Go to the other one, the YouTube one right there. I want to play this clip, and I got a question for you at the end. Go for it.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
People say Ron's all Trump, but he is so much more.
Big league. So good.
I just thought you should know.
Ron DeSantis for governor.
So what happened? What happened between the two of you guys?
Well, nothing. Well,
No
first of all, that just understand, like that's obviously a tongue in cheek. We were having fun.
Of
with
course, it's actually a
But-
funny video.
But here's the thing about it. When you're doing these campaigns, you want to get as much free media as possible. So I knew that would cause the corporate media to light their hair on fire, and they did. And so they just kept playing it for me. So we didn't even have to really pay for the ad and everything, and we're just doing out. And so part of it is that ad gets out. What do the average voters see? They say, "Hey, this is a guy with this beautiful wife, young kids, everything like that." And that kind of helped us there. But I did more for him in his 2020 reelection than any other elected official. I raised him more money than any elected official. I got people in Florida to support him that were not happy with him because he didn't fire Fauci. He didn't do anything to stop the BLM riots in the summer of 2020, which we didn't tolerate in Florida. But you had cities burning down all across this country, and there was nothing done. So there was a lot of people that I got on his team, and I worked really hard, and we, really delivered the victory because in October of 2020, I mean, his campaign was putting out stuff. Oh, if he loses Florida, it's all because of the governor. Okay, well, I brought in more Republicans here, so I was happy to do that. But
And this is where we get into it because, like I said, Ron DeSantis needs money. He needs campaign money. He's hemorrhaging money. He's hemorrhaging support. And maybe this is why Pat and PBD brought him on to do that, because it's going to be a lot of talk about Donald Trump and what's going on there. Let's see, 1 for 34. Brother Smeebles. Florida's actually ranked number 1 state for education from what I'm reading. I'll send you the links on Telly. Yep. Because I'm looking at that too. And you have Governor Ron DeSantis. It's a page, of course, backed by Florida. In 2023, U.S. News released its best states rating, in which lists Florida as the top state in the country for education, while the Sunshine State placed at number 10 overall. The report lists Florida as a state with a sizable system of universities and community colleges. So, looking at this, so yeah, it was like just a quick check, and let me go back one more. Oh, here it is. So, and there it is. I'm just scrolling. I did the same search you did. And then of course you're gonna have, ABC Action News is like, what does that number 1 rating really means? And that rating was by the US News and World Report. So I'm just trying to scroll through here and see if we can see anything government backed or anything like that, and I don't. So there you have it. K through 12 education rankings by state. And again, I'm not seeing anything. Scholario, I don't know what these people are. And forgive me, sometimes y'all know I have a hard time talking and reading at the same time, because y'all know I'm educated in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Brother Smith was like, public school ranks for Florida is ranked 42 out of 50. 1 for 34, appreciate that. Florida is number 1 for higher education. 2023 state education rankings, best to worst. And I'm just trying to find some rankings, and it has at the bottom, Tennessee 41, Florida 42, North Carolina 43. You'll see Oklahoma 44, South Carolina 45. So, and then Arizona is 50. It goes all the way down. So from 41 down to 50, and this is the bottom 10. You got Tennessee, Florida, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Alabama, New Mexico, Nevada, Louisiana, Arizona. Top 10, 1 through 10, you got New Jersey, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Vermont, Massachusetts, New York, Maine, Colorado, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. I'm just seeing if we can find something that's just backed by the government or something. I was trying to find something that was, here we go, National Education Association. That's probably Union. You got the National Center for Education Stats.gov. They got fast facts on here, but I don't see any rankings. Because you understand in making school, I don't see any rankings. And this is a more of, so I'm gonna have to do another show. I'm gonna have to do a show and see if I can debunk myself, because I made the statement. And again, there's different numbers out there, and thankfully, Brother Smeebles was able to shoot us some quick data all the way from Australia. It says Florida ranks number 1 for higher education, and then of course, for public school rankings, Florida is 42 out of 50. So we're starting to see that's what it is with numbers. So I'm definitely going to do a show. I'm going to have to do a show. Maybe I'll do a short tomorrow and see if I can find some more information and throw it on there. Because if DeSantis came in and if his policies turned Florida around and brought the educational system up in the rankings, you got to give him credit for it. You got to give him credit for it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm not a huge fan, but it's like, if he done that, you got to give him the credit. But it's like Florida ranks at the top for higher education, and for public, like K through 12, looks like they rank towards the bottom, 42 out of 50, and number 1 for higher education. Thank you, Brother Smeagles, for that. Appreciate it. And I'm definitely going to follow that up tomorrow with a short. I'm do a deal short about that. And you look at what's going on with DeSantis and Trump. So there's going to be a lot of talk about Trump here. So, let's continue the video.
Reality is okay, what about going forward? What's the vehicle to make the country great again? And we need somebody who's going to be able to galvanize support and then attract the needed personnel to be able to deal with the administrative state. And then you need to actually be able to deliver results. I mean, one of the things on there that it's talking about is the wall. Remember, build the wall and have Mexico pay for it. What he now says on the campaign trail, I mean, honestly, honks me off, because he says that if you believed what he said then, that you're somehow a loser. That's what he said the other day. And then before he says, all these people saying that I'm gonna have Mexico pay. There's no legal mechanism in Mexico. Then you look at what he said in 2016. He was saying he was gonna have Mexico pay. But here's the thing about execution. There actually is a way to have Mexico pay. The way you have Mexico pay is you impose fees on remittances that people send back to Mexico who work here, Central America, anywhere in the world. You'd raise billions of dollars and you would actually be able to construct the wall. So, look, I'll tell you, I was disappointed, as he's leaving office. Did he use that time to fire Fauci or to do any of that? No, he actually gave Fauci an award, a presidential commendation, on January 19th, 2021. And that was personal for me, because Fauci, everything we did in Florida, Fauci attacked us on.
Andres, can we lower governor's audio down like a notch? It just all of a sudden spiked. Please continue.
So DeSantis is saying that you can, in fact, build a wall and have Mexico and other countries pay for it by adding a fee to remittances, to money that migrant workers send home. That money could be used to fund the wall. So how would that work? I mean, if would that make you more likely to come into the country illegally? Because the only way you're going to track that money is if they're working legally. You're going to have to somehow know that this is a person from another country and they're sending money home. So, and then how would that work with tourists? Like, would tourists come over? Are we going to charge them if they decide to send money home? I don't know. What would that plan look like? What would that program look like? And who would get caught up in that? And how would you get around that? Would it be, usually going to take that money right out of their check? If it's a cash business, you're going to take money from the employer. Like, I don't know how that would work. And as far as building a wall, like, if I would definitely work with Border Patrol and find out what they need. Like, what do you guys need down here to secure this? It might be a wall or a fence or whatever they need in certain spots. Certainly they're going to need more personnel, more tech, more drones. You know what I mean? But I mean, how would you do that? Like, we're just gonna take money from your pay, and we're only gonna take the money if you send the money home. So I guess you couldn't really take it from their pay. You can only take it from them when they send money home. Well, what about all the apps? Cash App, Venmo, Western Union app. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you get that money? How do you know that money is being sent home? What if you send it to some? I don't understand how that would work. You know what I mean? And Brother Smeebles is saying, but in doing so, wouldn't that make them think twice to even come here? If they lose money, they'll want to stay off the books completely. People doing the right thing get punished, which turns people away. Facts. That's what I mean. Like, if you know that's going to happen, it's like, bro, that's facts. It's like, well, why? Like, I already got to pay taxes. Everyone complains about taxes. And on top of my normal taxes and fees and all this, I got to pay I got to pay now to send money home. You just find a different way to get the money to the crib. You find a different way. You open an account. You open an account in whatever country that is, and you just transfer money between accounts. You can have a city account. You can have a city account in all sorts of countries. How are they going to find that bread? Again, I think that's just talking loud and saying nothing. You're appealing to the base. Now, again, Ron DeSantis is doing this podcast so he can raise money. Really, that's what he needs. He needs money. Brother 90s is in the building. What's good, fam? Good to see you. So yeah, like, I don't know how that would work. Charge a fee to send money home. But wouldn't it be an easy way to work around that? Or like Brother Smeeble says, and why come legally then? I'm gonna sneak over here, make all this money and then leave and come back. And really a guest worker program is the best way to go. You have people come over here, they work legally, and then they, a seasonal work or whatever, and they go back home, wherever home is. That's really what we need to do to reduce the amount of people trying to come here illegally. If he were to say something like that, that would make sense. He's just trying to appeal to his base. And Brother Smeebles is saying he should have questioned that a lot. Get him to break that down. Facts. And PBD ain't questioned nothing. Not a thing. And, Patrick Bet-David is one hell of an interviewer. He didn't question nothing. Now, I'm sure there was a deal that was struck, and I'm pretty sure that DeSantis people had a list of stuff. I don't want you to ask him anything like this. And if he brings up any of this stuff, it might have been someone in the room that Pat could see is shaking his head yes, or shaking his head no. So it is what it is. This was good for the platform to get the governor of the state to come in there. This was great for the platform. I understand that part. But, man, there's so many questions that need to be answered.
You go for it.
So Fauci, he would do interviews with local TV affiliates in Florida bashing us. Oh, they're reckless. They shouldn't do that. He attacked us because I forced the schools to be open. I mean, I didn't really have the normal authority. I was using emergency powers and leveraging those with the funding to be able to do it. And that saved the bacon for a lot of kids. And it was obvious after a few months that this Fauci was totally off his rocker, but he was doing real damage because anytime he'd go to the podium, his pronouncements were treated like the Pope speaking ex cathedra to Catholics. And it was very
Black Swan, though, was a very tough season where, even Obama, Biden, none of these guys had prepared for a pandemic. The only one that knew a pandemic was coming was a guy named Bill Gates. Everybody else is like,
but here's the thing. You don't know. That's true. And I think there was a lot of uncertainty in March of 2020. The question is, what about November of 2020, December, January of 2020?
What should he have done?
He should have fired Fauci. He should have held these people accountable for being wrong, for lying to the public on all these different issues. The corrupt medical swamp in D.C. was a total disaster. I'll tell you what they also shouldn't have done. January of 2021, last few weeks in office, they're sending me missives from the White House task force saying, impose a mask mandate, close restaurants. And I'm just thinking to myself, and the media here would use it as fodder. They would say, DeSantis is not following the Trump White House task force. And I wasn't. That's true. But the media use that as a wedge. So I think that the whole Fauci, and here's I think the issue for the election going forward is I'm the only one running that is talking about bringing accountability for what happened to this country during COVID. It's one thing to make a judgment call that's wrong, but it's another thing to ignore evidence. It's another thing to lie. When you tell people like CDC did that if you take an mRNA shot, you will not get COVID, and you still stand by that when it's obvious that people are getting it, when you're having the FDA approve an mRNA shot for 6-month-old babies where there's no evidence that that's benefiting them, this is a swamp. This needs to be cleared out. I will do that. Here's a concern, I think, with the Trump nomination is FK Jr. running as an independent. He would be the vessel for, and there's a lot of anti-Fauci, anti-lockdown voters who are upset about it.
Sure.
RFK would be the vessel in that scenario, whereas me as the candidate, I'm the vessel for that. Everyone knows I'm gonna hold people accountable. In fact, I'm gonna be in New Hampshire this week with,
a lot of stuff that he said. Again, Pat let him get away with it. That one bit where he said he forced the schools to stay open. Like, I forced the schools open using a combination of emergency powers and funding. Okay. So the schools are open. I wasn't here when they did that initially, but did you give the parents the opportunity to make a choice? See, California didn't give a choice. They shut everything down. You should give the opportunity to your kids, like, you know what, I'm not comfortable with it. I want my child to stay home, and I'll just do remote learning or whatever. Give them a choice. I don't know if what DeSantis did, I don't know if it was, no, you gotta go to school. I get the anger. There were a lot of mistakes made, a lot of mistakes. The Trump administration, the Biden administration, misinformation was coming out of, Fauci's office and all that. And they're like, well, why didn't they fire Fauci? Well, Fauci was following marching orders. I think that's what happened. He was being a good little soldier and doing what he was told to do. And a lot of people made a lot of money off the warp speed and all that other kind of stuff, developing these vaccines and whatnot, forcing people like, oh, you want to take this vaccine? Well, you have to sign this waiver. So if this thing does something to you, we're not held accountable. Nah, that was wrong. I wouldn't spend that much time trying to prosecute people or shame people or whatever, but I would definitely go back and try to fix what we did wrong. Let's go look at what we did. Okay, how can we do better? So let's go ahead and write the book now. Brother Dino's in the building. You're absolutely right, bro. Obama was talking about the next pandemic in 2015. We did have boots on the ground in China. He left the playbook in the White House, and Trump threw it in the bin. He threw it away. Facts. I don't, when Pat said only Bill Gates knew, nah, smart people knew. Obama was a very smart dude. He knew. So when it came time to actually implement this plan, this strategy, the incoming administration, which was the Trump administration, blew the whole thing up. So there was no one to get the information from. So no one really knew what was going on and what they were dealing with. So it led to these bad decisions down the road. I get that. Why didn't Pat ask him, like, so what would you do to ensure we don't go through this sort of thing again as president? Instead of saying, I would go back and go after these people and go after Fauci and take his award from him and say shame, 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 or whatever you're going to say to, I'm going to, again, the swamp. It's the medical swamp, DC medical swamp. We're going to drain that. Man, stop it. What good is that going to do if we still don't have a program in place? We don't have a plan in place for the next pandemic, and we know it's coming. The world is very, very small. We know it's coming. We still don't have a plan for it. You know what I mean? Brother Smith was all the way over there. And I love it when we have people from all over the world who rock with us. Brother Smith was all the way in Australia. It's like, yeah, bro, I think Fauci was a puppet too. Facts. He was a good little soldier. He was a good soldier. He followed orders. It's horrible. He didn't have the courage to step up and stand up and do what was right. He did what he did. and was probably handsomely rewarded for it. But America still doesn't have a plan for the next pandemic. So when the next one pops off, the same thing is going to happen, only this time no one's going to listen. You're not going to get Americans to go into the house again. They're not going to listen. You know what I mean? As far as wearing masks, like you got people, they won't wear a mask. If I catch a cold, if I'm walking around sick, I'll wear a mask. I'm not wearing it for me. I'm wearing it for the people around me. If I got to go outside, I don't want to get you sick. Right? I don't want to get my daughter sick. So I'm put a mask on. I learned that in Japan years and years and years ago. That's why Asian people do it. Japanese people do it because, you know what I mean? They don't want to disrespect them, themselves by getting others sick. So they put a mask on. And that's all it's about. But look how bad this is. And you got so many people who don't trust anybody. It's like, well, I get it, question everything, but you don't know when information is being put out. You don't know what information is being suppressed by our government, by our media, by corporations, by individuals. It's just terrible. So here we are. We got this guy who wants to be president of the United States, and he hasn't said a single word about how he would do it differently or what he would do moving forward. Let's continue.
Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo, Dr. Ladapo, he's one of the few, and he's really the only person in a position of power that's actually.
And he got criticized a lot as well.
Well, that's what I told him when I hired him. I said, listen, what you're doing, you're going to be the only one in position of power to actually take these, because that was one of the things early on with me when I was making these decisions. It wasn't just that it was unpopular. I could not get a doctor to stand with me and say I was right. And a lot of them would say it privately, but they were scared.
All
to
their
say
interviews
it
would get taken down on YouTube. All
they
the
would
doctors,
get, So, but Joe, I think, is an example of what you need to be able to deal with this medical.
So, okay, so let's go. Okay, fair enough. Because even Republicans will say, why is the president keep bragging about the fact that the warp speed, the vaccine saved 100 million people's lives? I don't even want it to. Like, some
That's
people
false. That's totally false.
But the point when he's saying that, right? But let's set that part aside. When I show the clip of that video, and the left sits there and says, look at these guys. They can't even figure out who they want to be the Speaker of the House. They can't even figure out how to do this. Look at this McCarthy, and look at this Mike Johnson. Look what they're going to kick him out as well. And it shows a not a unified party. But I want to go back with Trump. Would you have won your first term when you won by 34,000? Which I read your book the moment it came. The day your book came out, I read. I'm probably one of the first people that read your book. Would you have won governorship first time if he doesn't endorse you and put those tweets about you? Would you have won by 34,000?
Well, here's what I mean. The test of that is I won by 34,000 with his men. 4 years later, he attacked me 3 days before the election. I won by 1.5 million votes.
The answer to the question is no, he would not have won that election. That election was very close. Now, I'm not saying the other guy should have won. I forgot his name. Dude lives a very alternative lifestyle, let's say. He got himself into a bit of trouble out here in Miami, doing some stuff, well after the election. But if you're gonna keep it 100, if I were DeSantis, I'm like, look, it'd have been very difficult to win that race. That was a very close race, and having Trump come in when he did and give us that push, I don't know what would have happened. I'm not sure. I can't sit here and tell you, Pat, that we would have won that election without the help of Donald Trump. That's all he had to say. It's like, look, bro, now back then, who was Ron DeSantis? Ron DeSantis was a guy that was sending out the robocalls with the African bongos in the background saying stuff that these calls were going out in Florida, right? Again, it's politics is dirty. It's like, bro, people remember that. Black folks don't forget. They don't say nothing, but they don't forget. Who was Ron DeSantis, man? This dude, it's not like he ran a stellar campaign. So he probably wouldn't have won. He said it himself. He was like, man, the Florida was purple. It was on the verge of going blue. Trump came in there and gave him the push he needed to get over the hump. Bro, he should have said that. Like, bro, I don't know. I don't know if we would have won without that help, without that boost. I don't know. Came in at the right time. That's all he had to say, man. Brother Smith was talking about Fauci's like he had the most power in the American government, and he wasn't elected, and the highest paid too, I think. Yeah, government employees, they, it's a cap on the scale, but they, he's gonna make all that money back when he You know, he writes his book and all that kind of stuff, bro. And I'm pretty sure there's other ways he was getting bread, man. I feel you on that 100%. 100%. Brother Dino, DeSantis, Florida, population 7.6 million. All this goes into the deaths is 90,000, and California population 11.3 million. Deaths 102,000. Hey, look, a lot of those numbers, bro. A lot of those numbers are skewed. You know what I mean? They were just hitting people. It was, you know, and depending on what state you were in, New York had this issue as well. Like, you know, it was just the corners would be like, it was this, it was this, it was this. Well, was it really? Like, you just don't know. You know, well, the person had a stroke, cause of death was a stroke, but they also had, you know, they were victims of the pandemic. So just put that on there. So the numbers, especially because, I mean, the government had an interest in propping up those numbers. So, and I don't know if we'll ever truly know what the true numbers were, but the way we handled that was just horrific. You know what I mean? And Brother Dino DeSantis knocked 1 million of the education off the educational rolls. It was the biggest complaint. Yeah, like, you know, we looked at the numbers though, bro. Like I said, for higher education, like Florida's ranked number 1 in America for higher education, but K through 12, they're at the bottom. 41 out of 50, I think it was. So I'm definitely gonna do a short on that tomorrow, man. I want to get to the bottom of that, bro. It's like, oof. Like I said, if DeSantis is responsible for maybe improving the K through 12 system or had a hand in the higher education, the university system here, you got to give him credit. You know what I mean? If his administration had a hand in that, you got to give him credit for it. Like, I would not trust DeSantis to count the real you know, pandemic numbers. And I wouldn't trust the government to do the same, bro. Like, the government had a vested interest in getting those numbers up. They did. I mean, again, once they decided to do what they were doing, they had a vested interest to get those numbers up. They were trying to lock people in the homes. Imagine if the real number was only reflective of who was truly at risk: older people and people with pre-existing conditions and overweight folks. The overweight thing is bad for America because, you know, as you know, 70% of America is overweight, right? Or obese. So people who were obese should have really been careful. The elderly should have really been careful. People who had pre-existing conditions should have been really careful. But if those numbers were reflective of that, the government would have been left with egg on his face, bro. So I think that the government had a vested interest as well. So, but I, you know, I feel you, bro. I feel you. Brother Mandrell's in the building. What's good, man? I see you, bro. Good to see you. And Brother Smeebles, talking to Brother Dino. Yeah, it was definitely a double-edged sword, bro. How much did the economy suffer compared to get those numbers? But also, if a deletion, or I could say death, a death certificate said the beer bug, the hospital got like 10,000 in compensation to around 3.5 thousand. So, or compared to 3.5 thousand, bro. If the government had all kind of incentives to keep those numbers up here in America because of what they were doing, all sorts of incentives. If they gave us the actual numbers and the numbers bore out that like the vast majority of Americans were okay, they were safe, there was no big boogeyman, then there's no way people would have stayed in the house, which doesn't matter because no one's going to stay in the house next time anyway. And Brother Smeebles continues, which also skewed the stats of the beer bug deaths. Same thing happened in Australia. Facts. I think it was a little bit worse in Australia, to be honest with you, bro. Y'all were really dealing with it, man. I mean, it was like, from what I was reading and what I was seeing, it was like close to martial law over there, bro. Like, it was crazy what they were doing. It didn't get that bad over here. It never will get that bad over here. Why? There are more guns in this country than people. You know, people get to a point where they've had enough. They just gonna go ahead and grab their things, and you know what I'm saying? Like, what's up? I'm going outside. Stop me. So, but there was definitely that, man. And that's the problem, man. That is absolutely the problem. When you have people running their own agendas and this sort of thing happens and you affect folks. I mean, there's some people out there that got hurt. They may have lost their lives that didn't need to. And there were some people out there who lost their livelihood and didn't need to. And here's this dude, he's sitting here talking his talk, but, you know, Pat's not pushing back on anything, man. Like, I don't think that DeSantis would have won that election were it not for that bump he got from Donald Trump. I mean, it sucks because he had to, you know, it would suck to like, yeah, I got to concede that fact. Like, bro, I don't think we would have won without Trump. But he keeps going to, but the next time we ran without Trump, we had this many more people. You wouldn't run in a tight race, bro. The Democrats weren't even trying. They just weren't trying. Smeebles was like, yeah, I was in the worst state of Victoria. It was messed up. Yeah, you were telling me some of the stories, bro. It was just horrific what I was hearing. They had the military out there on patrols and walking up on people, asking for their papers and stuff like that. Do you have permission to be outside? Like, what? Thought y'all were grown-ups. Like, what's going on? Look at that. They have 5-kilometer travel limits from home, and that's insane, bro. That's insane. I never would have been able to get out of California if we had something like that here in America. We would have been stuck in California. PBD would have been stuck in California. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that bad here, but it was bad. And one day we may find out, maybe 10, 20 years from now, we will find out exactly what happened, who did what, when, what did they know, when did they know it. Fauci's definitely going to put it all out there. Maybe he'll put it, like, rate the book and have his memoirs and lock in the under lock and key until he passes away and in the will, like, go ahead and release the book so he can tell everybody what exactly happened. We'll see. We got Miss AKA Ladies in the building. What's good, sis? She's like, the champ is here. You wilding, girl. You wilding. Yeah, I'm just winding down. We're sitting here talking about going over the Patrick Bet-David video. And I'm going to, like I said, I know this is going to be, we're going to have to do a part 2 to this. So we'll watch just a little bit more and then we begin to wrap it up. But let's continue.
So he was at a rally in Pennsylvania. He started launching attacks against me. So not only did he not support me in my reelection,
but the first time,
hostile.
Would you have won the first time?
Look, yes, I would have.
You think you would have won? I would have won
because here's the thing: if you look at the voters who opposed me the first time versus the voters who then supported me the next time, the number one reason they flipped from against to for in 4 years was Trump. Trump was a factor in 2018. It didn't matter what I did. They were going to vote against me. That was the reason. They viewed me as that.
Fair.
And it was a blue wave across the country. I mean, remember, Republicans got wiped out across the country. I mean, we got wiped out in the House. We lost a bunch of
There was no red wave is what you're talking about.
There was a blue wave.
There was a blue wave.
It was a snapback against Trump. And that's natural for a first year in the midterm. But here's the thing. You get into office and the question is, what do you do with it? And I've done more with it than anybody who's been in a similar situation. The policy success we've had, the leadership in crisis, and then moving the political pendulum in a direction that we've done is just you cannot argue.
I don't know if I disagree with that. I don't know if I disagree with that. The only thing I think about is a guy helped you. There's a difference between being a mayor. Like, I'm sure when you see a mayor like you're a mayor, right? There's a difference between being a mayor or Congress or governor of Florida, California, New York, Texas. These are big states. You're running a country. You're not running a state. If you look at the data,
13th largest.
And right away, this is, so we had at least 7 instances where PBD did not push back, but he pushed back on this one. He was like, yo, you wouldn't be governor if it weren't for Trump. Like, that's past, like, you really think you would be governor were it not for Trump? He pushed back. So we know he can push back. You can only take so much. He was like, come on, bro. No. You would not be governor if it weren't for Donald Trump helping. That race was way too tight. And then DeSantis goes on to say, well, I did get in, and it doesn't matter how you got in, but it's what you do with it. But let's get back to the question at hand, bro. Wasn't Trump the determining factor of you winning that election? And the answer would have to be yes. And the fact that he can't say that tells me a lot. That tells me a lot right there. Like, bro, come on. You would not have gotten in without Trump. And yeah, he's like, well, I got to snap back, and it's because of Trump, and the red wave didn't happen. We had a blue wave and all this. And again, PBD did push back, but he let him go. He didn't lock down on it. He didn't become the pit bull. He just kind of let it go. Like, all right, bro, you capping. And that's what PBD probably would have said. Like, bro, you capping. There's no way you would win that election without Trump. I mean, it just, at that time of what was going on at that moment, the race was too close. There's no way. But then they're going into what they're about to go into now. Let's check this out.
It's the economy in the world.
That's right. But the point is, that part, what do you say to the audience when they look at you and say, okay, so, Governor, I love your policies. I'm very happy. I'd love, for you to be a president. I think you have a lot of great qualities of being a president. You're a family guy. You're this, you're that. But what do you say to the faction that says, You know, but the guy gave you an opportunity to be a governor. How about show loyalty to that guy? What do you say to those people?
How's it showing loyalty when he attacks me 3 days before my reelection? I had never done anything to him. Even all the Fauci stuff, I kept that private.
That 3 days before, how much prior to that did you and him communicate? Were you guys regularly communicating or not really?
I don't really remember, but I mean, at that point, that was kind
I don't really remember. That means y'all weren't communicating. It is what it is. How can I be loyal to a dude who came out against me and, you know, in my reelection and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? I would have, again, if I'm DeSantis, I would have taken a different tack. I'd have like, look, man, I was one of the shining spots of the election. It took a lot of Trump shine. You know, people were already talking about me running. They were already kind of looking at me as maybe the new leader of the Republican Party. There was a lot of stuff being said. I wasn't saying it. Other people were saying it. You know, Trump had to do what he had to do, man. I was a threat to him, so he had to do what he had to do. And it is what it is. It's politics, bro. It's politics. You know what I mean? He was president, and he needs to be reelected because he knows what was on the horizon with all these, you know, investigations and potential cases and indictments. Look where he is now. None of this would be going on if he were president. The last thing he needed was a threat, and I was that threat. That's all he had to say. That's it. That's all he had to say. I get why he came after me. That's it. I get it. You know, I get why he came after me. Yes, it was the Trump push that got me over the edge, that got me into the seat in the first place. But once I got here, I was able to do and then start talking about all your accomplishments or whatever. That's all he had to say. That's all he had to say, man. Like, it is what it is. And the Dino was talking about Sturgis. Hey, man, it is what it is, bro. You know what I mean? And Brother Jack is right. Yeah, you tell those 1%ers they can't go to their bike rally. You know, and again, it wouldn't have been as bad if some of those guys wore a mask or just pulled up the little sleeve thing. You know what I mean? They could have done it, still look hardcore or whatever. But, you know, that's part of having freedom, man. You know, freedom is an ugly thing, man. It looks ugly. It is ugly. People do stupid stuff all the time. I can't tell you. Like, I'll be standing in line at a drugstore or wherever, and it's just me. I'm just one other person waiting. You know, got the cashier up there, and it's like, okay, I give plenty of room, at least 6 feet. I don't want to run up on the person who's at the counter. At least 6 feet. Then somebody come up behind me and get it right up on me, man. Like they're trying to stand in my back pocket. Like, bro, what are you doing? Back up. Like American, and it's a lot of it. I'm like, are you stupid or dumb? You know what I mean? Like, which is it? I just get mad because it's like, bro, why are you all up on me? But it's just, they're so preoccupied. Americans just don't think. Like I said, man, they don't put nothing through the think tank. So it's just like, hey, it's just dumb, bro. They don't mean nothing by it, but it's just like, and some of them, I'm like, you just go, you go. You go. I'm trying to give myself room. I'm trying to get some space, you know, and then especially people be sitting around here coughing, trying to hold the cough in. Like, you sick? You sick. You out here sneezing and hacking all over the place. And you want to stand right up on me. Man, make you want to just pistol whip somebody, bro. Like, how about I just pistol whip you right now for being stupid? But don't do that. Don't do that. That's a no-no. So we're going to leave it there. This is part one. We're going to leave it there. So far, there's been 7 instances where I think PBD should have pushed back or maybe, you know, probed a little bit, maybe delved a little bit deeper. When he was talking about bringing UFC here, and he was like, oh, you know, when Dana White was like, I want to make sure that the mayor's on board, and you know, DeSantis was like, well, I just would have overruled them. I would, you know what I mean? I would overrule them and force them to do this. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I would have asked that. Like, well, how does that look? What does that look like? How are you gonna force the mayor of some city to do something that they don't want to do? The city that city doesn't want to do, the citizens of that city, you're gonna force them to do it? What? How does that look? You know what I mean? The whole CBD thing, like the central bank digital currency thing. It was talking about like, didn't talk about the insurance thing. They mentioned it, but didn't talk about it. Didn't talk about E-Verify. Mentioned it, but didn't talk about it. You know what I mean? And it was something about kids. I can't read my own handwriting, guys. I can't. Oh, gender. That's. I thought it was a C as gender. Like the whole gender transition thing for the schools. You know, okay, well, why were you so alarmed by it? Who was trying to do that? Like, you know, because we know about California, but I don't recall that being a thing in Florida. So we, you know, PBD delve into that. I thought he should have. You know, the black vote, World War III in the Middle East, 9/11 guys, those dudes who hit us on 9/11, most of them entered legally. PBD didn't get into any of that, right? That was the third one. The fourth one, he's like, he would upend the order of DC. Another way of saying drain the swamp, but he didn't say how. He didn't say what he would do as president to resolve this situation in the Middle East. They didn't talk about Ukraine at all. They didn't talk about China or Taiwan, I don't think. Maybe in part 2 they did. But anyway, I would have delved into that. Like, how are you going to do that? You know, you're going to drain the swamp. No one's been able to drain the swamp. How are you going to drain the swamp? DeSantis brought up migrant flights. He brought up his whole migrant flight thing. PBD didn't get in, ask him about that. Explain to us how that worked. You took an airplane from Florida, flew it to Texas, filled it up with people who were migrants, came to Florida, just landed, and then took off again and went to Martha's Vineyard. Like, well, okay, what was the point of that? You weren't moving people from Florida. How did you get the money to do that? Where'd that money come from? What was that money supposed to be for? Right. So wide open. He didn't ask anything about that. We talked about K through 12 like the teachers left, where we talked about where Florida rates K through 12 towards the bottom. But higher education, university level, Florida ranks at the top. So again, be looking for a short on that. I'm definitely going to be covering that. And if DeSantis and his administration had anything to do with that, they deserve all the credit. But I know K through 12 is bad. He talks about a charge of fee for migrant workers who are here legally to send money back home. You're going to charge a fee for that? Like, how does that make sense? What's that going to look like? And with that money, you say you're going to build a wall. Well, make that make sense. Pat didn't press him on that. And then his comment when DeSantis said he forced the schools open. Forcing the schools open, does that mean you forced the people to send their kids there? So Pat really didn't go in on none of that, but Pat did push back and go in on the whole Trump thing. It was like, hey, you got in office the first place because of help from Donald Trump. And DeSantis said, no, I don't think that had anything to do with it. I won anyway. And PBD did push back on that. You know what I mean? And Ms. AKA lady, it's like interesting stats about the education down here. Absolutely. I'm going to do a short on that tomorrow. I'm going to delve into that a little bit, read a few more articles and see what's going on. And we can thank Brother Smeebles for that. All the way in Australia, setting the record straight for me, because I made some comments and I was saying, yeah, the educational system rates near the bottom. And he was like, well, I did a quick check, man. Actually, it's number one for university level higher education, but it is towards the bottom for K through 12. So shout out to you, bro. That matter of fact, you know what I mean? We got to show you real love on that, man. Don DeMarco on that. That's why I love rocking with y'all, man. I'm glad y'all rock with me because you keep me straight. You know what I mean? Force me to go out there and actually look and shit. Sometimes I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Like, oh shit, I'm wrong. Let me apologize for being wrong and correct that and maybe lock that in so I know in the future. So we're definitely going to do a part 2 tomorrow. That's funny. In 1918, the American troops wore masks. Yeah, that was during the Spanish flu, which had nothing to do with Spain. Let's see. Did Patrick Beck David ask about Florida insurance? No, he brushed over it. He brought it up in his monologue, but he did not ask the governor. And I brought that up, bro. He did not talk about insurance. You know what I mean? That's what got me, bro. And that was like the number 2 thing I put down. He was talking about central bank digital currency. He was talking about the gender swap thing with kids. Florida homeowner insurance and E-Verify, and the governor didn't speak on any of it. So again, softballs, bro, softballs. Miss AKA lady, I heard they are trying to implement state taxes. Is that true? I haven't seen or heard anything about that. I haven't read anything on that. But they may need to. And what they're going to do is, again, this is why the governor doesn't want to talk about it, in my opinion. They want to implement a fee to every homeowner in Florida to help with this insurance crisis. This fee will be taken from all homeowners, like they'll be paying a percentage to be paid to whatever insurance company is left to help them get money in their coffers so they can insure the people who live on the coast and whatnot, the underinsured or the people who can't insure their homes at all. If that's the case, that's going to be a horrible, horrible decision. And I mean, it's already out there. We'll find that information. and have it for you next time we talk. But there's already talk of that, and that's supposed to be implemented in 2024, if I'm not mistaken, 24 or 25. So I'm gonna see if I can find that for you. Someone sent me that a long time ago, like not a long time ago, like 4 or 5 months ago. And I was just scratching my head like, wow, this can't be true. But that seems to be the plan. And some variant of that plan has been allegedly approved by DeSantis' administration. So we'll see. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's like they think the first pandemic started in Western America. Yeah, I remember reading about that, like the Spanish flu and all that kind of stuff back in the early 1900s. It was right after World War I, if I'm not mistaken, and it was crazy. It was crazy. They said the soldiers were coming home, from the war with it and all this other kind of stuff, but I think it started right here in the good old USA. But I don't know much about that. I'll have to do some more research. Miss AK, hey, lady, if we get the state taxes, he's like, then I'm out. She's like, I'm lying. I love Florida, just hate the government. I mean, it's tough, man. To govern takes a lot. It's hard. It's a lot of hard work. Florida and California are the same in the sense that it's run by one party. The Democrats run California, the Republicans run Florida, and we're talking about at the state level. So they don't have to compromise or work with the other side. It's just is their way or the highway. And same thing in Texas, and that just sucks. That just sucks. Our government is set up so you have to cooperate with others in order to make things happen. So man, I'll leave that there. We'll be back Monday. I'll do part 2 of the Governor Ron DeSantis PBD interview. I'll do part 2 on Monday. Remember, tomorrow we got Shoo. She's going to be here. We're going to have a good time. Talking about what we talk about is going to be wild. We'll probably get started a little later, probably like 6:30 or 7. I'll let look for the thumbnail at the time. I'll be on there. And be looking for some shorts. Definitely going to do the short about the education system down here in Florida, K through 12 versus higher education. That's crazy. Bottom of the ratings for K through 12, top of the ratings. Number 1, in fact, 1 or 2, depending on what you're reading for higher education here in Florida. That's crazy. That's a huge swing. But be looking for that. We'll have a short out on that. Shout out to Brother Smeevils with dropping the gems. Brother Dino for always keeping us on point. Miss AK, lady, everyone who was in here. Brother Jacket was in here. Nightish, you know what I mean? Mandrill popped in here for a hot second. Wonderful 34. I appreciate all y'all. Anyone I might have missed, thank y'all so much for rocking out with me. It's always a good time. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll see y'all tomorrow when we hollering at Shoo. And then we'll do part 2 on Monday for the PBD podcast. Again, softballs all around. But Pat did push back on the question, would you have won the race, your first election if you did not get help from Donald Trump? He did push back on that. So, there's that. So that's it, y'all. I'm out. I got to go cook. I think my daughter wants a turkey burger tonight. Y'all know she loves those turkey burgers. So about to go make a turkey burger and some stuff for my child. I'm going to talk to y'all tomorrow. Appreciate every last one of you. I really do. Thanks for rocking out with me. I'm DL Saint, and this is the I Really Want to Know podcast. Peace.
Nothing like I've ever seen. It's just a thing of beauty.
Darn, that's the end.